Okay, Eric, you ready? Eric?
I'm ready. Recording
Okay,
is starting and streaming is starting, so we're good.
Okay.
Admitting all.
Mike, are we good to start?
I still have two that are working on connecting to audio. Other than that, everybody's on.
Okay, we'll give everybody just another second.
Yep.
I'll let you tell me when to start, Eric.
Okay. We do ask for all of you that are on, please leave your video off until you are called up, and then we can bring you on at that point. And I still have two that are connecting to audio, so give us another moment.
Okay.
One left. And it may be waiting for them to click something on their side. So if you want to go ahead, Jason, I think we're ready to go.
All right, then I'll call this November 10th meeting of the Birmingham Board of Zoning Appeals to order. Thank you all for your patience, and sorry for a few minute delay while we work on some technical issues. Because of COVID-19, we continue to have our virtual meetings via Zoom. As a result, we have had to change our parliamentary procedures. Thus, I would ask that we follow some basic procedures during tonight's meeting. First, all speakers must be acknowledged by the chairperson prior to speaking. Board members can do this by physically raising their hand in their screen. For members of the public, we ask that you use the raise hand feature within Zoom at the appropriate time. Please note that if you are accessing the meeting using your cell phone, you can raise your hand by dialing *9 on your phone. Let me repeat that one more time. If you are using your cell phone, you can raise your hand by dialing *9 on your phone. Second, we need to keep our comments succinct and to the point for the benefit of a productive meeting. If we have to, we'll limit comments to 3 minutes per person, but hopefully we don't have to do that. Third, all voting will be done in the form of a roll call vote. Fourth, when a member of the public is recognized, the member of the public will be unmuted and will be asked to state his or her name and address before speaking. I ask for your patience, cooperation tonight as we handle tonight's business, and thank you in advance.
One more thing, Jason, for the roll call vote, with the new laws that are out, each member has to state not only that they are present, but also that what city and state that they are dialing in from for the record.
Okay, so board members, with every vote, we'll have to say that we are in Birmingham, Michigan, unless you are somewhere else.
Oh, sorry, not with every
Nope.
vote, just with the roll call.
Just the initial one.
Yeah.
Oh, just the initial roll call vote.
Yes, yeah.
Okay. So
Just saying that you're here or not.
Understood. Okay.
Yes.
Glad we don't have to do that for every single one. So with that being said, for the initial roll call vote, we'll each have to say where we are located. The Board of Zoning Appeals hears 3 types of matters: dimensional variances, which include signage variances, use variances, and appeals from decisions of city officials or board of the city. We only have dimensional variances before us tonight. In those cases, each applicant must establish a practical difficulty, among other things, that requires 4 affirmative votes. We are going to start by having a presentation by the Community Development Department, at which point the board members will be able to ask that individual questions. We will then turn to the applicant. We ask that one person speak on behalf of the applicant. We will allow certain exceptions in situations where we need some technical assistance, but generally speaking, only one person is allowed to speak on behalf of the applicant, at which point we'll turn to questions from the board members. We will then allow the public to comment. And as I indicated moments ago, we ask that you state your name and your address. Try to be succinct. Tell us whether you're in favor or opposed to the appeal. But in all cases, direct your comments to me as the chairperson. We will then close the public comment and take no further comments from the public or the applicant unless so requested by a board member. We'll then entertain motions by the board to either grant or deny the request. And again, 4 affirmative votes will be needed to successfully proceed on the dimensional variance. With that being said, can we do the roll call of the board members?
Yes. And so now is the time to say where you are located. So
Okay,
Charles Lilly, Jason Canvasser,
Here in Birmingham, Michigan.
Kevin Hart, Richard Lilly,
Richard Lilly, I'm here. Folly Beach, South Carolina.
Folly Beach.
Yes, Folly.
Thank you. John Miller,
I'm home here in Birmingham, Michigan.
Eric Morganroth,
Here, Birmingham, Michigan.
Francis Rodriguez, Jerry Attia,
Yes, Jerry, it is here in Birmingham, Michigan.
Ron Reddy.
Yep, Ron Reddy's here in Birmingham, Michigan.
Okay.
All right, do we need the applicants to do the same thing or just the board members?
Just the board members.
Okay, thank you.
Mhm.
All right, so with that, we'll call the roll of the applicants. Our first appeal tonight has been withdrawn, so we turn to Appeal -20-40, 707 Lakeview. Is there anyone here on behalf of that? I think I saw Mr. Nieper.
Yes, I'm here.
Okay, I see a thumbs up from Mr. Nieper. Appeal 20-41, 530 Vinewood.
Yes, here.
Okay, thank you. Appeal 20-42 for the property at 1292 Cole Street.
I'm here.
Thank you. The appeal number 20-4343 for the properties at 35001/35075 Woodward.
Yes, we're here.
Thank you. Appeal 20-44 for the property at 1352 Dorchester.
I'm here.
Thank you. And the last one for the night will be Appeal 20-45 for the property at 607 Hawthorne.
I'm here.
Great, thank you. Do we have any correspondence tonight that have not been distributed to the board members already?
No, the 2 letters that were emailed out to you guys earlier in the week.
Okay, thank you. All right, board members, we did not have a meeting on October 13th, 2020 due to the Michigan Supreme Court's overturning of Governor Whitmer's prior executive order and some of the questions that the city attorney raised regarding legal ramifications of that decision. So we do not have any minutes to approve from the October meeting, but because we didn't have an October meeting, we need to look back to September and approve the September 8th, 2020 meeting. So do we have any comments, corrections, revisions? If not, I'll entertain a motion. I see Mr. Morganroth's hand up.
Motion to approve the minutes.
I see a second by Mr. Miller. Could we please call the roll?
Eric Morganroth,
Yes.
John Miller,
Yes.
Jerry Attia,
I think they have to hear you.
Oh, Jerry Atia?
Yes.
Okay. Ron Reddy?
Yes.
Jason Canvasser?
I have to abstain. I wasn't here and I had a conflict of interest, so I abstain.
Okay. Richard Lilly?
Yes.
Okay.
All right, that carries. Turning, I believe that's it. Turning to the first appeal of the night. Appeal 20-4040 for the property at 707 Lakeview. Mr. Zucchi, will you be speaking on that one?
I will be. Let me try to get rid of the echo. Here to present case 20-40, property known as 707 Lakeview. Request the following variances to construct a new home with an attached garage. Chapter 126, Article 2, Section 2.08.4 of the zoning ordinance requires that a maximum building height with sloped roofs is 30 feet to the midpoint. The proposed is 35.30 feet, therefore a variance of 5.30 feet is being requested. Variance 2, Chapter 126, Article 2, Section 2.08.4 of the zoning ordinance requires that a maximum building height to the eave is 24 feet. The proposed is 30.60 feet, therefore a variance of 6.60 feet is being requested. The applicant is requesting a height variance to construct a new home with an attached garage. The lot slopes from front to the rear, which creates the request being here tonight. And let me share my screen. Everybody can see my screen?
Yep.
Yeah.
So looking at the left elevation, as it slopes from the front, the right side's the front, as it slopes down to the rear, kind of creates a a natural walkout. And that's where the request is being asked for. And so you can kind of see on all the elevations, it meets everything just until it gets towards the rear of the house. Here's the footprint of the house to the north and to the south, there's retaining walls, and in the house being proposed in the middle doesn't have retaining walls as it slopes down to the rear. That's why they're here tonight asking for the request. Should you have any questions?
I see a couple hands. Mr. Miller?
Could you just circle the area that's out of compliance on the plan there? I think it's that wing on the south side. Okay.
Correct. Yeah, that southwest corner as it slopes down and in that area, that's where it's creating the issue.
That's what I thought. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Mr. Morganroth?
Mr. Zucchi, so is there any manipulation of the grades on this? Is it all natural? Because I see what appears to be a lot of steps in the garage. I don't see any retaining, but is this all natural, or is there any mitigation being done? Well, not mitigation, but is there any forcing that's being done that's achieving or forcing any of this height?
No, it's pretty much natural as it's sloping down to the back. And I know the appellant can contest a little bit more to that, but it's natural going down to the back that's creating the issue in the front. I know the front is under the allowance, so there's been some thought and then trying to minimize it into the rear.
Okay, thank you.
I see a hand by Mr. Atia.
Mr. Zucchi, can you go back to the elevation and show that impacted area one more time, please?
So here's the front of the house on the left side, and it's sloping down towards the back. So there's the eave at 30.6 feet. And then there's the midpoint of the roof, which should be at the 30 foot, which it's at, they're proposing to be at 35.3 feet. So in that back corner here, this is where the variance is being looked for and sought for.
Understood. Okay. Thank you.
Mr. Zilke, the previous home, is that compliant or does that have the same issues, if you know?
I'm not 100% sure. I don't believe the height was as tall as this, maxing it out, because I know it was an older home. I don't know the answer for sure.
Okay. Mr. Miller?
Yeah, I had another question. The existing house, you know, when I was walking around it, I realized that it was, that there was no one living there, so I, you know, was able to walk in the backyard there. But is that entire existing house, I assume, is being torn down, and this is completely new? Is that correct?
That is correct.
Mr. Morgenroth?
Mr. Zuki, just for the record, if this lot were a flat lot, would the appellant need a variance?
No, they would not be here tonight.
Thank you.
Okay, I think I see another hand. Mr. Mattia?
Sorry, it's Jerry. Mr. Tia, yes. So I'm curious, what is the practical difficulty here exactly? That the land is sloping?
Well, I think we'll let the petitioner tell us what they think the practical difficulty is.
Yeah, I think the appellant can speak of that. I'm, you know, with the height variance, yeah, without it being a flat lot, that's where it creates the issue in the height. Any other questions?
Yeah, board members, any other questions? I can see everybody on the same screen. Mr. Reddy, sorry if I've been missing you.
Yes, that's all right. Hey, Jeff, what exactly is the definition of the midpoint height? That's the only thing I need to have clear in my mind. The max midpoint. How do you define that?
It is going from the eave to the peak of the roof, and then midway from that roof down to the ground. So the midpoint would be the span, here, I'll pull the screen back up. So if you're looking on this triangle area, so you kind of see that line running through the middle there?
Yes,
So
sir.
that would be the midpoint because it's going from the eave to the peak, halfway down, creates the midpoint.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
No problem.
All right. Do we have any other questions from the board? I don't believe I see any. So thank you, Mr. Zilke. Who's going to speak on behalf of the petitioner?
Good evening. I'm Brian Nieper, architect, 630 North Old Woodward. You know, you're at 707 Lakeview. It's a great site. We've been able to meet all the zoning requirements except for the building height and the eave height. The site is unique in that it slopes from the front down to the back roughly 8 feet. We are planning on maintaining all the natural grading around the house except for a little bit of retaining at the driveway near the garage. I guess, you know, measuring the building height and the eave height from the low grade at the rear of the home, the southwest corner, that's really causing the problems since we have to measure from the lowest point at the house. So when we do that from the low grade at the southwest corner, we're 5.3 feet too high for the roof and 6.6 feet too high for the eave. The design mitigates these height variances. The Mediterranean style with the lower pitch tip roofs, it sets our height at the street front within compliance when we measure from that street front grade. You know, as the house extends to the back, we step the roofs down to the point where from that at the lowest grade point to the roof that's immediately adjacent to that roof height does meet the 30 foot requirement. It's just the fact that we have to measure to all the way up towards the front of the house to the highest point on the roof from that lowest point in the back. It causes the problem. But we just believe that the strict compliance with the ordinance for this presents practical difficulty for my client to use the property to build a normal 2-story home. As you can see from the graphic, that the eave height and the midpoint of the building height that would be required would require us to build a 1-story home, viewing it from the street front. Thank you for your consideration on this. Happy to answer any questions.
Thank you. Board members, any questions? I don't believe I see anything. Anyone? Okay. All right. Thank you, Mr. Nieper. At this point, we'll turn it over to the public. Does anybody from the public have any comment on this appeal only? I do not believe I see any hand raised. Again, if you're on your cell phone, use *9 or use the hand raise feature in the Zoom. Give public just a quick second. I don't believe I see any hands raised. So I'll close the public comments. Board members, would somebody like to make a motion on this appeal? Mr. Miller.
Yes, I'd like to make a motion to support appeal number 2040 for 707 Lakeview, parts A and B. I believe the fall of the terrain is pretty startling. Even walking down the street, you don't realize it, but if you walk back into the lot, from the front of the lot, even to the midpoint, it really falls off. Due to the extremely steep fall off of the site, I don't believe this would allow strict compliance of the ordinance, and would prevent the petitioner from using the property in a reasonable way. This problem, of course, is not self-created. It's due to the terrain and due also to those very unique circumstances of this property. So again, a motion to approve tied to the plans as submitted.
Support.
We have a motion by Mr. Miller. I believe it was Mr. Morganroth who seconded it. Any discussion? Okay, please call the roll. Laura, I think, is on mute.
You should be on.
Laura, can you hear us?
Yeah, I'm so sorry. I got disconnected for a second.
No, that's all right. Well, can you please call the roll on appeal 20-40?
Yes. Who made the first and the
The
second?
motion was to approve, made by John Miller, seconded by Eric Morgan.
Perfect. Okay. John Miller,
Yes.
Eric Morganroth,
Yes.
Jerry Attia,
No.
Ron Reddy,
Yes.
Jason Canvasser,
Yes.
Richard Lilly.
Yes.
Okay.
All right, motion passes. You have your variances. Congratulations. All right, moving on to our next appeal of the evening, appeal 20-41 for the property at 530 Vinewood. Mr. Zilke, are you speaking on this one as well, I believe?
I am. Case 20-41, property known as 530 Vinewood requests the following variance to reconstruct the existing non-conforming driveway and patio. Chapter 126, Article 2, Section 2.081 of the zoning ordinance requires that a single-family residential lot shall have a minimum open space of 40%. The minimum open space required is 2,758.40 square feet, or 40%. The proposed open space is 1,968 square feet, 28.5%. Therefore, a variance of 790.4 square feet or 11.5% is being requested. The applicant is requesting to remove and replace their existing driveway. There's been a few conversations we met out there. They are mitigating the driveway somewhat in the patio area. Let me share my screen. Everybody can see my screen?
Yeah.
Yes.
The drawing on the left is the existing conditions. There's a wood deck in the back, the patio going all the way to the lot line, the garage is in the rear of the house, and the depiction on the right is the proposed in the yellow. The wood deck is removed, and they try to mitigate as much as they can because the garage is in the back. This is one of those houses that were constructed that maxed out the building area. And do you have any questions?
Mr. Miller.
Yeah, should that area, that kind of the patio they have in the front yard, that didn't get colored yellow. Is that not being repaved?
That is being redone, but that's considered the porch where you got the 10-foot that's allowed to project in the required front yard. So it's allowed and it doesn't get counted for the square footage.
And as far as I could tell, the garage is actually a rear entry garage. I didn't walk all the way in the backyard.
Correct.
But it seems, and confirm this if you would, it seems that in order to get a car in the garage, you have to drive all the way past the house, turn around and get into the garage from the backyard, essentially.
Yes,
That
that would be correct.
Yeah, it certainly causes you to have to pave a larger area than otherwise you might have to. But okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
Board members, any other questions for Mr. Zulke? Mr. Morgan, do you have a question?
Yeah, so Jeff, what percentage is the driveway and the front walk? In other words, I mean, you know, you have obviously what they need to be able to transition to the back of the property. You have the area that needs to be turned around, which probably requires all the hardscape that encompasses the width of the garage. So the only piece that really doesn't serve a needed function, except for obviously enjoying your patio, is the portion where the wood deck is being removed and you're stepping down from those steps down to the patio. Is that, or you know what I'm saying? Or you would be over if you just did the driveway and the area you need to turn around to get in the garage.
I don't know the exact numbers. I know the house is elevated in the back to get out, so there is a need for the steps to get out.
And removing the deck didn't help, right? Because the deck was part of the lot coverage.
Correct.
So all they really did was pull in the paver area that was behind the deck a little bit, but then they pushed out the center section a little bit. Is that accurate?
The center section in the back was actually pulled in a little bit, but not a whole lot because there is a catch basin in the back corner where you can kind of see the circle right here. There's a
drain. Right. All right. Thank you.
You're welcome.
All right, let's see, any other questions from the board? Board, any other questions? All right, seeing none, who is going to speak on behalf of the applicant?
Hi, good evening. This is Marco Barashai. I'm the applicant's son-in-law, also a resident of Birmingham. Can you hear me?
We can hear you.
Great. So thank you. Yeah. So as Mr. Zalke showed the survey, what Santa's trying to do is replace all of the red pavers and the decking that was present when she purchased the home. The pavers have to frequently be repaired after basically every winter. The wood deck is really beyond repair in its current state. So after meeting with Mr. Zelke at the property, she tried to mitigate as much of the hardscape as possible to try to get closer to the requirements of the city today. However, as again, Mr. Zelke mentioned, the home was built with the previous standards. So we are here today to ask for this variance so that we can really, for safety concern and for just upgrading the home and access to the garage, variances as being requested.
All right, thank you. Board members, any questions? Mr. Morganroth.
Yes, in the past, when people have come in and they exceed the lot coverage in this case, and they're replacing everything, from what I recall, many of these did not get approved simply because there's just more lot coverage and you have to show practical difficulty. I recognize that the driveway is needed and the turn needed, and not knowing the vehicles you have and how to make that turn. And then of course you have a small remaining area off of your, wherever your egress is from the back of the house to a usable patio. Not to say that the depth of that patio couldn't be shrunk down to try and reduce your request for the overage, but it sounds like you're over by about 790 feet, which is about, 100 feet wide times 7 feet deep. It's a great area. Can you explain to me what you mitigated from before? Obviously I see the old brick paver, but I don't know if you asked for more, whether you've considered doing even less than what you're showing here, but it's a large request to ask for such an overage on lot coverage.
Yeah, so if you take a look, I mean, obviously we've given what we could. The red pavers went to the lot line to the west and also to the very back to the north of the lot. If you remove the wood decking, that area is very small. So if she has any of her grandkids or anyone there, whether it's a deck or a small patio, once you get down to the stairs, so the stairs that are presented there are right in front of the back door. You probably couldn't get a table with more than 6 chairs down there if you just want to sit in the backyard, unless you obviously put it in, into the driveway. So, we don't know what else we could give up, frankly.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Any other questions from the board? Seeing none, anybody from the public wish to comment on this appeal? Seeing none, does somebody want to make a motion on appeal 20-41? Mr. Reddy.
Yes, with regards to the property known as 530 Vinewood, Appeal 20-41A, I would move to approve the variance request. This is, I think, clearly fits under special or unique conditions and circumstances. In this case, particularly the narrowness of the lot prevents the appellant from doing what you might normally be able to do with regards to replacing the pavers with concrete and still allowing them some access to the garage. It appears that they've tried to mitigate it to some degree, and for those reasons, I would move to approve.
Do we have a second? Mr. Miller?
And I'd like to comment also that, what's really causing this is the very, very unusual nature of a garage basically facing backward. And that's an existing condition. So even though, as Mr. Morganroth mentioned, this is a big variance, I think it is extremely unique. Certainly doesn't set any type of precedent because of that very unusual nature of the layout of that existing house, and to keep it functional, to be able to get in the garage. And once again, yes, I am seconding the motion.
Any other comment from the board? Ms. Morganroth?
Yeah, I'll support the motion, although I'm looking for reasons not to. But I recognize the issue. I mean, the home is about, it seems to be about 80 feet wide, if that's right. No, 25 and whatever the width is. It's obviously narrow, and even if we gave them half the variance, they likely would not be able to access their garage. So this is clearly a unique circumstance. My home is actually very similar to this, but my garage is in the back of the property, and I go and I turn into it. So I wouldn't need as much hardscape, and I don't have as much hardscape as they do, but I'm unable to access my garage without it. So recognizing that it is really a unique situation, and they already have this much hardscape now, and technically if they had repaired this in pieces, they may not have been, it may not have come in front of us. So for that reason, I'll support the motion.
Any other comments from the board? All right, seeing no hands, please call the roll. The
Ron
motion
Ready.
is to approve.
Ron Ready,
Yes.
John Miller,
Yes.
Eric Morganroth,
Yes.
Jerry Atia,
Yes.
Jason Canfisser,
Yes.
Richard Lilly.
Yes.
All right, congratulations, you have your variance. All right, our next appeal tonight is Appeal 20-42 for the property at 1292 Full Street. Ms. Oki.
Case 20-42. Property known as 1292 Cole. Request the following variance to construct a single family home with a detached garage. Chapter 126, Article 4, Section 4.74C of the zoning ordinance requires that a minimum total distance between principal residential buildings on adjacent lots of 14 feet or 25% of the width, whichever is greater. The required total is 14 feet. The proposed is 12.03 feet. Therefore, a variance of 1.97 feet is being requested. The applicant is constructing a new home with a detached garage. The existing home to the west is creating the issue being non-conforming, which is why we're here tonight asking for the variance. I'll show you my screen. And as you can see, at some point there's an addition on this house, creating it being 3.03 feet off the lot line. The applicant is at 9.17, creating a total of 12.03 feet, which 14 feet is being required. And that's where they're asking for the 1.97 feet tonight. Any questions?
So just for the record, if that house to the west is torn down and a new house, if we give this variance, that's not going to do anything to the house for us, correct? They can still build a house there.
Correct. Then that would be corrected at that point. It meets the ordinance as it sits with it, and the variance is being driven by the house to the west.
Any other questions from the board? Don't see any. I apologize if I'm missing any, but I don't see any. Okay. Thank you, Mr. Zolke.
You're welcome.
Who is going to speak on behalf of the petitioner? Can't hear you just yet. You're still muted.
Can you hear me now?
Now we can hear you.
Okay, so my name is Alan Amchislowski. I'm the owner of this house. Forgive me, I'm on my wife's computer. Me and my wife are planning to build this house. The plan has been built for a couple of times in Birmingham in the last year and a half. And that projection for the house that's on the west side, he is projecting almost all the way to the property line, he's encroaching almost to the side setback, all the way to the property line. I just don't see how it would affect him. There are no windows there, and you know, he's almost smack right to the fence, to the existing fence. And the plan that we're planning to build is 2,200 square feet. It's not a big house, and that's why we're asking for the variance. You know, if it's not granted, then we'll have to go back to the drawing board and build even a smaller house to comply with the 14 feet distance. So we're hoping that you will approve it, and we can build that house. Everything else has been approved except for the distance. It's been through the city with all the, you know, with the site plan and with you know, with all the variances, with all the drainage and everything, and the plan was approved. The last thing on the list was getting that distance in order. So.
Okay, thank you. Board members, any questions for the petitioner? Seeing none, does anybody from the public wish to comment on this appeal? Seeing none, thank you, sir. Board members, would anybody like to make a motion on Appeal 20-42? Mr. Lilly.
Yeah, I'd like to move to support the petition for 1292 Cole 20-42. The new property or the new house fits all of the current code, and what throws it off is the neighboring property that's too close. So based on that, I move to approve the petition tied to the plan.
Thank you. Do we have support? Mr. Reddy. All right, so motion up to approve by Mr. Lilly, support by Mr. Reddy. Any comment? Mr. Miller?
Yeah, we just wanted to add that the portion of the next door house that's actually pushing into the beyond the zoning envelope is about an 8x6 small. It seems like an addition to the house, or maybe it was an old porch, but it's completely windowless on each side. So certainly granting this variance wouldn't cause any kind of hardship to the neighbor. And I just wanted to add that comment.
All right, thank you. Any other comments from the board? All right, seeing none, could we please call the roll?
Richard Lilly,
Yes.
Ron Reddy,
Yes.
Jason Canvasser,
Yes.
John Miller,
Yes.
Eric Morganroth,
Yes.
Jerry Attia.
Yes.
All right, congratulations. You have your variance. All right, moving along, our next appeal tonight is 20-43 for the properties known as 35001 and 35075 Woodward. Mr. Cowan, you're speaking. Floor is yours.
Good evening, everyone. Can everyone hear me and see my screen share?
You can.
Yeah.
Okay. Brooks Cowan presenting on appeal number 20-43. The owner of the property, known as 35001 and 35075 Woodward Avenue, requests the following dimensional variance to allow 10 parking spaces to be placed within 20 feet of the building frontage along Woodward Avenue, Hamilton Row, and Park Street. Chapter 126, Article 3, Section 3.04 D5 of the zoning ordinance requires that off-street parking contained in the first story shall not be permitted within 20 feet of any building facade on a frontage line or between the facade and the frontage line. Therefore, a variance of 20 feet is being requested. The subject site is currently home to Hunter House Restaurants, a city-owned parking lot, and vacant land currently leased to the city for public parking. The property is located on the west side of Woodward and surrounded by 4 streets: Maple, Park, Hamilton Row, and Woodward. On September 23rd, 2020, the applicant appeared before the planning board for a revised preliminary site plan review. The applicant had proposed a number of changes to the originally approved preliminary site plan from April 2020. One of these changes was the addition of parking spaces to the first floor within 20 feet of the building facade on the frontage line. 10 of the 12 proposed parking spaces are within 20 feet of the frontage line, which does not satisfy the zoning ordinance section 3.04 D5. The planning board denied the proposed site revisions on September 23rd, citing that the proposed site plan does not meet the requirements of Article 7, Section 7.27A, which states that the site plan in its relation to streets, driveways, and sidewalks shall be such as to not interfere with or be hazardous to vehicular and pedestrian traffic. And for some background on the site, they're proposing a 5-story mixed-use building with retail, office, and residential units. They're also proposing 2 floors of underground parking. The building is within the parking assessment district, which means that they are not required to provide parking on site for commercial uses. However, they are required to provide 59 parking spaces for the proposed residential uses. The applicant has proposed 82 parking spaces in their below ground parking, and they've also proposed the 12 parking spaces on the first floor, which are the cause of the variance request. The applicant meets and exceeds their parking requirement with the below ground parking. And so if I switch to the floor plan, this is the first floor plan and from the September planning board hearing. And here we have the 12 parking spaces that were proposed. And so the ordinance does not allow parking spaces to be within 20 feet of the frontage. The ordinance wants to encourage retail spaces to be lining the front of the buildings. And so the only 2 spaces of these 12 outside of 20 feet are these 2 right here. And so the staff and the transportation consultant's memo to the planning board was that the access to these parking spaces from Hamilton, where you enter to reach these parking spaces, and then exiting onto Woodward creates a hazardous situation for ingress and egress. And those are the reasons the planning board cited for denial. So with that, I leave it to you guys with any questions.
Mr. Morganwell.
The building on the opposite corner that also has a restaurant on the first floor, there are some parking spots that line Woodward. I don't know if there's 6 or 7 of them. How does that apply to the 20-foot rule, or is that grandfathered in, or how does that work? Are you familiar with the spot I'm referring to?
The parking spaces between, I think, Hazel Ravines and Woodward.
Correct.
I believe those are coordinated with the city and MDOT. My impression is that they were looking into those, but there wasn't enough space for access and angled parking and an access drive.
Are those more than 20 feet? The Hazel Ravines ones?
Those are outside of the building facade. Those are outside of the property line. So
okay.
Those are public spaces.
Okay.
And so those are not subject to the 20-foot rule of the zoning ordinance.
And so is there any? Did they have any? Oh, God.
Oh, it's property line to 20 feet.
Oh, I see.
Yeah.
And any of the other mechanicals or whatever else I'm seeing in the other behind those parking spots, those aren't feasible spaces at greater distance, whether those either there or to the far right of the property, to the right of there, right over there.
This is indicated as a retail space.
Oh, so that's a retail space. Okay.
Proposed retail space, right? So there are requirements on where loading and mechanicals can be. The main issue with this revised site plan was where the parking locations are and how it doesn't meet the ordinance.
Right. Thank you.
Mr. Cowan, did the planning commission or the planning department have a recommendation for where these spaces should be?
I know that there's been a number of revisions and planning board hearings for this site. The applicant brought its preliminary plan to the planning board in April, and that plan did not have parking on the first floor. It was all retail, and all of the parking on site was in the underground parking deck. And that received approval from the recommendation from planning staff and then approval from the planning board.
And then they went back and changed the plan?
Correct. It's my impression that one of the tenants wanted to have more first floor parking spaces immediately accessible. And it was one of their requests.
So they don't have to have any first floor parking spaces, do they?
Not required to. The applicant meets their parking requirements. They're required to have 59, and they provided 82 underground. So this is an additional 12. So if you add these 12, it's 94. So they meet and exceed their requirements with below and also these 12. So these 12 don't meet the ordinance.
So if we deny the variance, they could still meet the ordinance, have enough parking, and they just wouldn't have those spaces right off of Woodland, correct?
Correct.
Okay. Anybody else have any questions? Mr. Reddy?
So to make sure I understand the concern from the planning commission, it's the way that people would exit this proposed 12-car parking lot, that they would be crossing a sidewalk to gain access back onto Woodward Avenue, and that would be where the issue with the pedestrians would be. Is that correct?
Correct. It's the ingress and the entrance and the exit that was the main concern for hazards, and that was also brought up in the community impact study from the our city's traffic review consultants who go over these plans as well, and that the parking spaces don't meet the ordinance, but their denial on based upon section 7.27 was that accessing and entering and exiting the building for these spaces created hazardous traffic situations.
And one quick follow-up, what would happen to the space if the variance was denied? What would replace what's the proposed parking right now? Do you know, or do we need the appellate to answer that question?
As far as I know, that the planning board approved plans for them in April, which indicated all of this space as retail.
Ah.
And so that planning board, that preliminary site plan still holds as approved. They came back with this revision to add these spaces, and that was what denied. And it was denied based upon, one, they don't meet the ordinance of these spaces, and two, access to them creates a traffic hazard.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Mr. Lilly?
Where in this is, because it's my understanding that the Hunter House is supposed to come back in there. Is the retail space in that front lower corner, is that where the restaurant's going to be?
So I know there was discussion about tenants, and the planning board wanted to make sure that, we're here to emphasize the ordinance, and we did not want to get, in between a tenant and the building owner and developer. What kind of tenant goes there is between them. And so staff and planning board wanted to stay out of that conversation.
Okay.
Mr. Attia?
So what's the reason in the ordinance for not having those parking spaces within 20 feet of the front elevation?
Right, the ordinance wants buildings to be lined with retail and active uses. I think in creating a walkable, pedestrian-oriented downtown, as you're walking along the building frontage, they want to see activity within the windows. They don't want to be walking by parking lots and blank walls. So it's,
And if we deny this, if we deny this ordinance, it's like, or this variance, it's likely that there will be retail space on that first floor, the way the original zoning ordinance proposes.
That's my impression. However, it's up to the applicant still. They still have to go to final site plan review as well. This is preliminary, though I would assume so, being that they got approved for retail.
Thank you.
Any other questions from the board? I don't see any. Thank you, Mr. Collin. Who's going to present on behalf of the petitioner?
I believe
I'm Kevin Biddison. Hisham Gayar, the owner, is going to present. He should be on the line here. I'm here for any technical questions.
This is Hisham Gayar.
Okay.
This is Hisham Gayar. I represent the owner of the property, Select Commercial Assets Hospitality. And as stated, the property, or that part of the property, is currently occupied by a long-time quick service restaurant and has been there for many years. The operator of the restaurant has clearly indicated several times in meetings and in the planning meetings as well that having surface parking is essential, is critical for the viability of the restaurant. And without the requested parking numbers or more, the restaurant cannot continue as at this location, at this historical location, and it's very critical to them. And by requesting the parking spaces, I'm trying to help provide the parking to the tenant in that condo space.
Thank you. And
I believe also Kelly Cobb, the operator of the restaurants, is present. If you wish to entertain his, I invite him to speak if he wishes to support having the parking for the location.
all right, we can get into that during the public comment. And I guess my first question to you is, and I'll caveat with this, I'm as big a fan of Hunter Houses as the next person. But you know, our love for Hunter House doesn't allow us to grant or deny a variance. We have a 4-part test. And one of those factors is, I think, a problem that you're going to have overcoming, and that is, how is this problem not self-created? Can you address that?
Could you repeat the question again, please, so I can understand it well?
Yes. So in order to grant a variance, you have to show that you meet a 4-factor test. Okay. Have you been provided with those factors?
Kevin, can you help me with that? This is Kevin Bedison is the architect.
Well, again, we're having one person present unless there's some technical issues. So, you know, I guess as the designated person, unless this gets somehow technical to why you can or can't do something, my question is, this appears self-created. Can you explain why you do not believe this is a self-created issue?
This is self-created from myself, you mean? I'm sorry for not understanding the process. The appeal is we're having grievance of not being able to have the parking in the first floor because the operator believes it's essential for their viability. And we're providing parking spaces as have requested by the operator.
I understand that, but under the factors of self-creation, you could build this building, irrespective of who the tenant is, and comply with at least with this requirement. I don't have any other variance requests in front of me. So assuming that every other requirement of the ordinance is met, you could build a building irrespective, again, of who that tenant is and meet the ordinance, correct?
Yes. However, there is an agreement.
Right, but we don't get into the private contracts between a landlord and a tenant. We don't get into the private contractual needs of what a tenant may or may not need. I certainly understand the utility for having first floor parking. I understand why a tenant would want first floor parking, but that's not something we can consider tonight. We can consider, can you build this parking, or can you build this building without the variance? And I need you to explain to me, before I think we can even consider giving you a variance, why you cannot build this building in conformity with the zoning law.
We can build the building, but we will not be able to provide the parking to the tenant if we do that. But yes, we can build the building and respect the zoning ordinance. However, in that situation, we will not be able to provide the parking to the tenant.
Okay, thank you. Any other board members, Mr. Morgenroth?
Yeah, again, as a huge fan of Hunter House also, and I know that Hunter House really is not the issue here, even though the rendering shows Hunter House's name, and we recognize that Hunter House is a potential tenant here. Even the access from the two roads, including Woodward, is somewhat mimics what Hunter House currently has. And in these strange times of COVID, I'm sure that having first floor access and immediate in and out and carry out and pick up and all those things are critical to the survival of restaurants right now. So I recognize the intent, but as our chair has mentioned, we have to treat this building as if we don't know who the tenants are. We have to recognize that Hunter House may or may not be in that spot now or may not be in that spot in the future. And we have to allow for the construction based on the ordinances blind of who's going to use those units. I can say that regardless of the restaurant, if I'm a fan of it, I'm going to go into a parking structure, take the elevator up and enjoy a restaurant if I enjoy it. But regardless of that, we have to simply look at what does the ordinance say? The spots aren't allowed. What did someone say even if we allowed for it? It's a dangerous thing to allow. So those are the factors that will impact my decision. So it's more of a statement than a question, but you know, I have to pretend as if I don't understand or know what's going to be going there, but simply look at the building on the property. Well, I guess I won't really have a question, Jason.
Okay. Sir, if you want to respond, obviously, this is your opportunity.
Well, I wanted to give the restaurants their needs, and that's why I applied for the variance to be able to grant them the parking they need for their business.
Yes, Mr. Morgenroth.
Do you have a plan for this area if this variance is not approved that does include the two spots that could potentially be put there, or do the two spots not function without having the egress and you know, the ingress and egress?
We have attempted that in the past to have three parking spaces in the middle of the building with an access from Hamilton, and that was declined or was not favored by the planning department, and it will really make it difficult. The restaurant's owner actually objected to being able to get in and out and turn inside. It would not allow. The width of the building will make it difficult.
Thank you.
Any other comments from the board? Any other questions, I mean? All right, seeing none. Thank you, sir. Any comments from the public? Yes, I see a hand raised by Kelly Cobb.
Hi, everyone. Kelly Cobb. I own Hunter House Hamburgers. I appreciate the comments from Dr. Gayar. I would just, perhaps I can clarify and illuminate some things here, and I do understand what the parts of the test that would go into approving the variance. There are deed restrictions on the use of this parcel and how, if it is to be incorporated into a larger development, the municipal lots parcel are to be used. And the deed restrictions predate Dr. Gayar's ownership of the property. They predate my ownership of Hunter House. But effectively, they call for parking surrounding a future building of our property, our storefront built into this. Hunter House does have a real property interest filed with the county, of course. We have deed restrictions on the property, but we also have the right to the condo space upon completion of the building. And so this is an attempt to meet not only those restrictions, but also the needs of the restaurant. The reality, I think, of the situation is that should this building be constructed, Hunter House will be the tenant there because we do have an ownership interest in remaining there. And in these times, but also not in these times, over half of our business is carry out. Right now, 100% is carry out. And there would be an economic hardship to us, I believe, without the granting of the variance. I also think because of the way that the deed restrictions are structured, that there would be an economic hardship potentially to the applicant because the reality of the situation is that there are other deed restrictions that we are working through to try and solve that are not in compliance with the deed. The building currently is not in compliance in other areas. And so it could result in the building not being built as a result. So I understand totally the tests and that must be met. And I appreciate this board's time that you've given it tonight. And I also appreciate your love for our restaurant. Thanks.
Thank you. I do have a question more towards the city because I don't believe I saw anything in our packet regarding deed restrictions. And so I guess to the extent, Mr. Cowan, you or anybody else from the city know, do those deed restrictions impact this request for a variance in any way?
Not that I'm aware of. I believe the planning board was just reiterating that they didn't want to get between the two private parties.
Okay. I certainly appreciate that. Do we have any other comments from the public? I see a hand from Mr. Gaillard, who I believe is the applicant, and I just would note that you've already had a chance to speak. This is a public comment portion. So I think, I don't know that we can let you speak anymore at this point. Unless somebody wants to make a motion, I guess, to the contrary. But I don't believe I have any other hands raised on this issue. So I guess with that being said, I suggest we entertain a motion on this appeal. Mr. Miller.
Yeah, I would like to entertain a motion to deny case 2043. I think that to overturn the planning board, I would have to find a real practical difficulty or maybe some sort of oversight on their part, and I just don't see it here. The planning board looks into real depth at these issues, and I can't ascertain a reason that we might want to again overturn the direction that they've already pursued. I don't think the ordinance is unusually burdensome in this case, and I don't think the problem is due to any unique circumstances of the property. So for those reasons, I would move to deny this variance.
I heard Mr. Morgan support, so I'll give you the support. I would like to comment on this because I will also support your motion. I want to be careful how we frame it, though. I don't believe this is a request. I shouldn't say I don't believe. This is not a request to overturn the Planning Commission. This is a request for a variance. While the Planning Commission has looked at it, I think we can also look at it from an independent perspective. And as I said before, I love Hunter House just as much as the next guy. I want to see them stay an integral part of the city. I urge the parties to continue discussions and planning and working together to make that happen. But we're limited in terms of what we can do. We're asked to look at a variance tonight, a variance regarding parking. And as we've heard from both the applicant and the city, this same development can be built without an ordinance. I think this is entirely self-created. And I don't know if there's any unique circumstances that have been presented that would justify a variance. So I'm going to support the motion for those different reasons. Any other comments? Mr. Morgan?
Yes, so as I mentioned, I do support the motion to deny. I think all of us feel as if we can only look at a plan that's being designed with a request for a variance based on, as we mentioned, you know, you have a large parcel, you're drawing a large building, you have a lot of flexibility. As the city mentioned, the current structure with its underground parking and other allowed parking does meet or exceed what is necessary. So to provide a variance to not only allow spots too close to the building per the ordinance, as well as that exceed how many spots are needed, and then with the information we have that there's some belief that there may be a hazard between the egress and ingress off of Hamilton and Woodward, it would be impossible for us to look at that and overlook it. So for that reason, I support the motion.
Any other comments from the board members? All right, seeing no hands, please call the roll. And I just note that we've been joined by Mr. Kevin Hart. So welcome.
How was Kevin here long enough to vote on this?
Mr. Hart, are you going to participate in this?
Yes.
Okay.
Okay, great. So John Miller?
Yes.
Eric Morganroth?
Yes.
Jerry Attia?
Yes.
Ron Reddy?
Yes.
Jason Canvasser?
Yes.
Kevin Hart?
No.
Richard Lilly?
Yes.
Okay. Your variance was denied. We wish you the best of luck. Hopefully you guys can work something out together. All right, moving on to our next appeal tonight, 20-44 for the property at 1352 Dorchester. Mr. Zuelke.
Case 20-44, property known as 1352 Dorchester requests the following variance to construct an addition to the existing non-conforming home. Chapter 126, Article 4, Section 4.74C of the zoning ordinance requires that a minimum total distance between principal residential buildings on adjacent lots of 14 feet or 25%, whichever is greater. The required total is 20 feet. The existing and proposed is 15.30 feet on the west side. Therefore, a variance of 4.7 feet is being requested. The applicant is here tonight requesting this variance for the second floor addition. They do have a permit for an addition off the rear, which conforms with the ordinance. This little side piece is an additional area that they want to construct, as this current proposal and current permit is underway. Let me show my screen. Everybody can see my screen. The shaded area in yellow is the area they want to build on top of the existing one-story portion, which doesn't conform with the distance between structures. It's only 15.30 feet. Therefore, the variance of 4.7 is being asked for and seeked out tonight. Have any questions?
Thank you, board members. Any questions? Mr. Miller.
Yes, I believe that the portion that you've shown in yellow there is an existing enclosed or semi-enclosed porch. Is that?
That is, I believe, is true and correct. And I know they're going to make a bathroom on the second floor over that area is what they're hoping to do.
But it seems like it's from what I saw, it's a screened-in porch right now that that they're looking to fully enclose on the first floor also, in addition to adding on above that. Is that correct?
I can't answer that 100%, but I'm going to say yes.
Mr. Morgan.
Mr. Zucchi, does that impact square footage or anything, a side porch versus a enclosed porch?
No, it still has a roof over it. It's still considered lot coverage. It's still non-conforming. It doesn't have no effect on the lot coverage.
And does the veneer on the second floor addition and the overhang exacerbate the nonconformity?
No.
So the nonconformity doesn't change at all with the addition of this second floor piece?
Correct.
Thank you.
All right, any other questions from the board? All right, seeing none, who is going to speak on behalf of the applicant?
My name is Timothy Wider. I'm the homeowner. Am I muted?
Nope, we can hear you.
Okay.
We can hear you. We can't see you.
Yeah. Let me get some video. All right. Okay. It says host has stopped it, but so the existing first floor is an enclosed room that we'd be building above to answer the previous question.
Okay. Is there anything else you'd like to tell us about your plans?
Yes. So the second floor room would be an addition would be the bathroom, which would, again, it wouldn't change the overhang. It would be directly above the room off the west side. My wife and I have spoken numerous times and given the plans to our neighbors, the Simonettis, who were kind enough to hear us out and gave us full support.
Okay. Thank you. Board members, any questions? All right, seeing none, thank you, sir. Does anybody from the public wish to comment on this appeal? I don't believe I see any hands raised. Board members, does anyone want to make a motion on this appeal? Mr. Morganroth.
I move to support the variance request for 1352 Dorchester, case number 20-44. The appellant is requesting a variance of 4.7 feet with regard to the distance between residential buildings. The variance that they're requesting is to add a second floor to an already existing non-conforming piece of the home. So I see there's obviously a practical difficulty because they want to be able to expand the home within the existing footprint, and the ordinance wouldn't allow for that because of the existing nonconformity. I think it's reasonable for the fair use of the property for the applicant. It does not increase the nonconformity, and will do fair justice to the neighbors and to the applicant. So for that reason, I move to approve.
Second.
Yeah. Mr. Lilly, I think I see your hand. I don't know if somebody else said anything, but Mr. Lilly, we'll give you a second on that one.
Yeah, I move to support the motion based on what Mr. Morganroth laid out.
Okay, any comment from the board? All right, please call the roll.
Eric Morganroth,
Yes.
Richard Lilly,
Yes.
John Miller,
Yes.
Jerry Attia,
Yes.
Ron Reddy,
Yes.
Jason Canvasser,
Yes.
Kevin Hart.
Yes.
All right, congratulations, you have your variance. And moving on to our last appeal of the night, 20-45 for the property at 607 Hawthorne. Mr. Wilkie.
Case 20-45. Property known as 607 Hawthorne requests the following variance to construct an addition to the existing non-conforming home on the second floor and also the first floor. Chapter 126, Article 2, Section 2.062 of the zoning ordinance requires that a minimum total side yard setback is 14 feet or 25% of the lot width, whichever is greater. The required total is 25.27 feet. The proposed is 15.97 feet. Therefore, a variance of 9.30 feet is being requested. The applicant is requesting to construct the home to the rear, a rear addition to the existing non-conforming home. The lot is irregular in shape, and it narrows as it goes towards the rear. Let me show my screen for a visual. Everybody can see the screen? The right side where my cursor's at, that existing house sits 0.88 off the property line. And zoom in a little bit. I'm going to try to zoom in a little bit. There's an existing set of stairs going up and out, and the request is based off of that corner of 15.09 feet. That's off the property line. And that is where the variance is being taken from, where the 9.30 feet is required to meet the total distance. The irregular shape of the lot. And there's the existing, they're going to build up on top of that. Let me go one more. Here's the existing. There's existing stairs there. Where's the new? The stairs are staying, so there's really not a change in the footprint. And I don't know if I'm going to be able to get my picture good.
Can you zoom? Oh, there you go.
Visual, that's what it's kind of going to look like when it's all said and done. And do you have any questions?
Mr. Zolke, I'm looking at this map. Am I reading it? Linden Park is to the, we're looking at it to the right. I'm not sure which direction that is. Is that correct?
What's that?
Linden Park is right next door to this, correct?
Correct. This butts up to the park, yes.
Do they have a wall and some of their property in the park? I'm confused by what I'm looking at in terms of this landscape. Is that the lot line, and then does everything go into the park?
It appears to be that. It appears to be that way.
Okay. We're not approving anything that would add to that, and I don't know if there's an agreement to use that lot, that area or not, but I guess that's a concern I just wanted to address.
No, the addition that's on the left side has no impact. Well, that's over on the right side. I will definitely do a little more research into it and have an understanding.
I just wanted to make sure I was looking at that correctly, because I thought that looked a little odd. But thank you. We can ask the applicant about that as well. Anybody else from the board have any questions for Mr. Zolke? Mr. Miller.
Yeah, it was interesting. When I first looked at the plan, I didn't realize that stair was existing till I kind of walked back there between the houses and I saw it there. But the variance is actually taken not from the new construction, but from where the existing stair sits. Is that correct?
That is correct, because it's a structure and it's really not in the rear yard. And that's basically kind of pushing that being part, in the way I looked at it, was part of the structure being the side yard. So wanted to make the worst case scenario with the variance request.
Okay. I'm sorry. So that existing stair is the 15.09 feet.
Correct.
But actually the new construction is maybe 4 feet or so beyond that. So
correct.
The new construction is closer to, say, 20 feet or so. away from the property line.
That is correct.
All right. Yeah, again, it threw me initially looking at that stair. I thought it was part of the new construction, just looking at the plan, but then seeing it, I realized it wasn't. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Any other questions from the board? All right, seeing none, who would like to speak on behalf of the applicant?
Amy, I think you can, right?
We can hear you.
Good. Well, good evening, and thanks for staying as late as you are. I'm not sure if you guys have any questions. I mean, I can re-explain, I guess, what we're looking at, but just to give you a little bit of history, I'm the second owner of the house. The house was built between 1928 and 1929, and curiously enough, it was the landfill for Birmingham. So this house was built on Birmingham's landfill. Second owner, been here about 40 years now. Existing, non-conforming. I have done some renovation work, but the footprint is as it was when I bought it. Want to add the addition to the neighbor side, which recedes away from the neighbor on the west side. Have their support, have the support of the neighbors across the street as well. The addition does not encroach any further into the, the side that's close to the lot line on the Linden Park side. And by the way, Linden Park, as we think about it, is kind of well beyond my house, although this is a little section as you walk through the nature path that I think most people look at as my backyard, but in fact it is public. And but that existing area was there when we purchased the home.
Thank you. And just to clarify my question, if we give you a variance, we also tie it to the plans. We just wanted to make sure if we were tying it to the plans, we weren't tying it to something that was in a public park that maybe shouldn't be. But so I appreciate your clarification.
Yeah, thank you.
I don't have any other questions. Anybody from the board have any further questions? All right, seeing none, I'll invite the public to speak on this, although I don't know that there's anybody from the public left. So seeing no hand, thank you, sir. Board, we entertain a motion. Mr. Miller.
Motion to approve 607 Hawthorne. It seems as though here the problem was not self-created. It's due to the very unique circumstance of the actual geometry of the property, which is about 112 feet across the front, but only 55 across the back, which is a very unusual condition, and strict compliance would really cause, I believe, an unreasonable difficulty for the owner. For that reason, I would, again, motion to approve and tie it to the plans as submitted.
Mr. Reddy, I think I saw your hand first.
I'd second the motion to approve.
Thank you. We have a motion by Mr. Miller, second by Mr. Reddy. Any comments from the board? All right, seeing none, can we please call a roll?
John Miller. John Miller.
Yes.
Ron Reddy.
Yes.
Jason Canvasser.
Yes.
Kevin Hart.
Yes.
Richard Lilly.
Yes.
Eric Morgenroth.
Yes.
Jerry Attia.
Yes.
All right, congratulations. You have your variance. All right, Mr. Zilke or Mr. Moran, any other business we need to discuss tonight?
No, I don't believe there's any.
All right. I don't believe we have anybody from the public left with us, but I'll just ask if anybody from the public wish to comment on matters not on the agenda tonight? Seeing no hands, would somebody like to make a motion to adjourn?
Motion to adjourn?
Second.
Second, do we need to call the roll, or can we do it by voice?
I believe we have to call the roll.
All right, call the roll.
Eric Morgenroth,
Yes.
Richard Lilly,
Yep.
John Miller. Jerry Atia,
Yes.
Ron Reddy,
Yes.
Jason Canvaser,
Yes.
Kevin Hart.
Yes.
All right, thank you, everybody. That concludes our meeting for the evening.
Thank you.
Thanks. Have a good night.
Thanks.
Thanks. Bye, guys.
Take care, guys.
Take care, everyone. Be safe.